Margaret, talk to us about the process, about how President Trump wound up with Jerome Powell as his Fed chair nominee.
Well, good morning. And yes, as the president prepares to leave for Asia, he has this major weight off his chest. They really wanted to get this done before he left. And he has announced, of course, his nominee, Jay Powell. But this is a process that began to some extent during the transition when his team got together and talked about the decisions he would need to make and how immediately they would need to make them. This was a decision that they decided could wait, certainly at least until this point in the year. And it was really over the summer that these decisions began. Janet Yellen, really right up until the end, was always in the president's mind, and that's the most important person in this calculus, one of the finalists. But it really was the influence of the Treasury Secretary, of Steve Mnuchin, that seemed to help put Jay Powell over the top. For the president, it is sort of that balance of the continuity of Yellen, much of the same decision-making that has helped stabilize the situation as it has been so far under Yellen, but also a chance for the president to make a fresh imprint and to put a Republican in that position.
So, Margaret, what do we then know about who might be pushing for whom to fill the rest of the boards on the Fed?
Well, it is John Taylor, that Stanford economist, who was Vice President Mike Pence's favorite and who I think we'll see emerge among many Republicans now as someone they'd like to see at least in that vice chair spot. But look, the president may have actually 3 or 4 Fed appointments in the coming months. So I think what comes first may not be the only stop we'll see. And we're beginning to see some of that actually quite public campaigning now among Republicans to fill some of those slots. But look for John Taylor's name to surface again and again. I'll say this also about Powell that's important for folks to think of. In terms of his background, there's 2 really interesting elements to look at. And one is that he's not an economist by academic training. He's a lawyer by academic training, although his experience in investment banking and on the Fed obviously makes a difference. And the second is that although he is a Republican, he has quite a bipartisan background, spent some time at the Bipartisan Policy Center. And in fact, during those touch-and-go debt ceiling talks early in President Obama's presidency, it was Powell who was quite influential in helping make the case to Republicans that the debt ceiling must be raised. This issue, as you know, is not quite resolved. It seems to keep coming back, and it will again. And so he is now in this position.